How's it going? Thank you all guys for coming out early in the rain. I was late, so I appreciate you guys coming here and warming up the room for me. My name is Joel Bugelman. I was expecting to speak to maybe 100 people, so I'm a little overwhelmed that you all are coming to hear this. But thanks for coming. I have a little talk called Pixel Pretty Damn Perfect. Just a quick little warning. Is it going? Quick little warning, there might be some spoilers about popular TV shows. So if you haven't watched Breaking Bad or Walking Dead or House of Cards, there's a couple little things I'm pointing to as nice little parallels, but hopefully I'm not spoiling too much for anybody here. Just a quick little warning. So Pixel Pretty Damn Perfect is this phrase that I used when I was working at Netflix with a good friend of mine, Ted Boda. And obviously, us as designers, we know this phrase, pixel perfect, and it's something that we focus on. It's something that we hang our hats on in creating beautiful experiences and products. But for me, Pixel Pretty Damn Perfect kind of summarizes some of the things that I've learned in a short time working for Netflix and working for Google and building these big products. And really, this talk is about a lot of things that I failed at when I was at a startup. And so this is not a how-to. This is no way me telling you how you should do your jobs. I'm just learning and doing this too, so this is a conversation. I like to talk because I love this community. So this is me just sharing my experience with you guys. So I want to continue this conversation after this hour, so hopefully we can meet up, we can talk on Twitter and whatnot. But a lot of these trends, a lot of these things that I want to share with you today and things that I've learned is around innovation, it's around testing, it's around strategy, and it's around building. So it's kind of the quick 4 overviews of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to try and slow down. It's like running on the way over here. Time change, all this stuff. West Coast time, I'm all messed up. So the punk rock startup, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was just a lonely old print designer doing conference brochures, a lot of boring print material for an antiquated technology company. And I got asked to lead design at this small startup called AppStack. And we called ourselves a punk rock startup because our CEO was 24, tattoos knuckle to neck, we're just a bunch of old metal kids trying to build mobile products. And it was a really fun time for me because it was something that I wasn't really, I hadn't designed mobile apps before. I was going into a mobile design company to create these experiences. And I made a lot of mistakes. And that was a huge thing for me. We designed a lot of UI, and we never really shipped any of it. And that was because I was coming at this job as an artist, and I only understood design to be this pretty thing that I make. And I felt like I was pretty good at it. I feel that's why I got hired. But I made a lot of mistakes, and I took a risk. And in that risk, I learned a lot as soon as I came to these bigger companies. But what I quickly learned is that what I was designing at the startup, I didn't really know what I was designing. I was creating pretty things. I didn't understand what my user was. I didn't understand what problems we were trying to solve. And because we were a startup, we were moving so fast, I never stopped to really think critically about product, to think about these experiences. And this kind of fueled all of these next 3 years of learnings for me that I want to share with you guys. And as I was even preparing this last week, I was thinking of these things I was talking about, and for me and a lot of my colleagues that have been building these large-scale products, I feel like I'm kind of redundant. And I don't want to say that from a point of I know what I'm doing. I say that because these things I talk about so much every day at Netflix and Google that they become second nature. And my hope is that if any of you guys are hustling on your own, or if you're working for an agency, if you're working for a small startup, I hope that some of the things that I've learned from the crazy smart people around me, you guys can also take some of that home with you. And hopefully we can talk about it some more. So I've spent the past 3 years of my life working on mobile products at Google and at Netflix. Obviously Netflix working on their video experiences, and now I'm on analytics and Android at Google. So a lot of this comes from that background. Hopefully we can have more conversations about that. But I feel like I'm kind of in the big leagues. I'm building real product, and it's kind of fueling these learnings from the mistakes that I made at the startup. So design like an innovator. How many people here know Tony Stark? Iron Man, right? I love this character in this show. He's an innovator. He's creating real cool things. He's also an influencer. He's popular. He's sexy. He's badass. He's smart. He's witty, right? And I feel like design needs to be that. We need to be sexy. We need to be smart. We need to be making trends. But I think more than anything, our design needs to be innovative. We need to be thinking about the next thing and creating new things. And when I say that, I say that like innovation for design is that it's unique. Everything that you guys are building, regardless of what space it is, whether it's for a company, whether it's for a client, each product, each thing that you're designing is unique. And I think that we have a tendency to look at other designs around us to try and solve our problems. And for me, that's cheapening innovation. I think we have to step away and not look at each other's work to actually truly innovate. And so if you look at like the typical design process for any kind of application or website or technical product, you have this early stage, and this is kind of how I approach a new project. You have to start off with conceptual design, with prototyping, with testing, to kind of figure out what you're actually trying to solve, how to approach this design project. The second part is actually doing the work, right? So we're doing the actual interaction flows, we're doing art direction, we're doing the actual production of the application itself. And when all of that hard work is done, if you have a project you're building for a year, this is the majority of the work. The final part is this nice visual UI that we all fall in love with, that we craft, and this is like what we hang our hats on. But what I think the problem that I found was that I was focusing on this, like what I touch, what I experience. And this is important. This is what we design. But really the hard work is this. This is where like we're solving problems. This is where we're innovating. It's not like the style of the drop shadow, right? All those things are important. They give cues. It's a part of the experience. But what I realized when I went into Netflix and now at Google, this is where we spend our time. We spend our time whiteboarding. We spend our time building prototypes and seeing users, fail at our designs. And this has been my biggest thing, is this is where I put in my hard work. I can figure out the other stuff later, but this is where we need to start. So in short, like, don't duplicate someone else's solutions. And I say that because I found myself always going to Dribbble or to Behance or to other sites to get inspired. And what I started realizing is that what I'm looking at is someone else's solution to their problem, not my solution for my problem. And it's just that top layer also. So I encourage you guys to really think hard about what you're trying to solve, the experience you're trying to create, the value you're trying to add, and start there. And if you want some visual inspiration, sure, like look at your peers, look at the people that are also doing great stuff. But we can't just be duplicating work where it's like creating cheap copycats, right? And I wanted to find like another good example outside of design, because we're all very nerdy, we're all passionate about what we do. And I was thinking about Dogtown. I just recently moved back to Southern California. Surfing and skate culture is huge there. And if any of you guys have seen the movie or read any of the articles about this era, these guys wanted to surf and there were no waves. And so they wanted to figure out a different way to surf. And that was like the birth of skateboarding. And I just thought that was a kind of a cool parallel of thinking about what we do and how we build products, and that like your solution should be something completely different from everything else around it. What, like the gap that you're trying to fill, the value you're trying to add as a product should inspire something entirely new. In the same way these surfers created a whole new sport. They created skateboarding, right? And it's kind of like that, skateboarding school, I like that culture, whatever. So design like an innovator. Design like a politician. House of Cards fans. Huh? Anybody done with season 2 yet? Okay, I screamed at my TV in episode 1. Like literally audibly screamed. I don't do that often. I freaking love House of Cards. I was fortunate enough to work on some of the stuff with David Fincher and Kevin Spacey at Netflix. I think it's a beautiful work of art. But back to design. So design like a politician. If you guys have watched the show, if you've watched any kind of cinematic works in this area, they like painting this picture of how strategic and how kind of tactical politicians can be in changing their voice and making sure they know who they're talking to get whatever agenda they want to get solved. And I think we have a similar role in design. I'm not saying that because I think we're trying to like manipulate our users, but I am saying that because we have to know our user. And I think we're doing a really bad job at this. I'm not even saying knowing your user like I'm targeting kids or I'm targeting small businesses. I'm saying we need to know our user and that we design mobile or we design web applications, we have to be very careful in understanding who's using those applications and where they're using those applications. I love Apple. I know a lot of people that work there. I think the work they do is great. And they've created, for mobile, a whole industry. They have human interface guidelines, and they've kind of like changed the game. But because their influence has been so big, I think us as designers, who are also a lot of Apple fanboys, we've taken that and cheaply made that the experience for everybody. And they are a dominant force, but there's a lot of other places. There's Android, there's actually Windows, people use Windows devices, and there's the web. And I say that because like I'm on Android now. There's apps that I want that I don't have, and this isn't just like a selfish cry to like make better Android apps, but I think there's this, right? This outline style that's in iOS 7. It had criticism, whatever. I think it's great, and I think it's beautiful. I think it can be done well. It could be done poor, but I think that this is becoming a visual style that you see everywhere. And that I'm not saying it's innately bad. All that I'm saying is that when you're designing products, you need to know where your products exist. And that should dictate your visual language. So when you start looking at different experiences, on the left here you have Twitter, and they've done a very well job of understanding the platform and making sure their brand speaks to that platform. So you have very Android language UI, you have very iOS language UI, or you have the scenario of Facebook where they kind of have their own experience. They've kind of ignored the guidelines of both operating systems and created an experience that's very similar to their website. And if you're on Facebook, you know how to use Facebook everywhere. And I think either scenario is appropriate, assuming you've done the right testing and you know your user. The thing that I found out was that when I was at Netflix and we were designing for Android, found myself asking the Android engineers, well, what's this weird up caret, or why are we doing this way? And it was a huge point of conviction on my part where I was like, I'm the freaking designer. Like, I should know this. Like, I should know every pattern out there because I'm the designer. And I found that I was so focused on the beautiful iPhone that I had no idea what my Android users were looking at the UI. I'm like, I don't know this. I don't understand this because I'm on an Android phone. And I think we have to really humble ourselves as designers and put ourselves in the place of our user to understand the platform that they're on in order to deliver the appropriate experience to what they're used to on their ecosystem, their device. This is the last bit of my rant I'll do here because I want you guys to create beautiful apps on iPhone, and I want you to ship those apps on Android too so I can use them. I have iOS devices too. I put this slide in last night because I had a lot of conversations with friends about this. I think iOS is a great platform to launch on. I think it's the obvious market where you're going to make a lot of money. But I think that a lot of people get success in their beta launch, they launch their first app, and it's really hard for them to move from their initial proof of concept to an actual full-scale app. And if any of you guys here are at big tech companies or places that have global products where you're kind of an app for everybody, you understand that you have to translate that experience to everything. And I think even if you are a small startup, you are building just your iOS app, it's good to start doing research now to understand the things you're doing, how those are going to translate, how those paradigms are going to change, how those UI affordances are going to evolve based on the platform. And it's very subtle things, but those things are delightful to the user when it makes sense and it's speaking the language of that platform. So in short, don't be a douche, because every user matters. And I say that kind of with some humor, but it's true. Like at Netflix, we designed for grandmas and 2-year-old kids, and you have to understand every user. And they all matter. They're all customers. They all make us able to do this awesome job where we get to create cool shit, create cool products. Sorry. I might curse a little bit too, so hopefully you guys aren't too conservative. Design like a scientist. How many Breaking Bad fans do we have in here? It's probably my favorite. I'm going to do that every slide. We're all big fans of this. Sorry. Design like a scientist. You have Jesse Pinkman and you have Walter White. You probably all know this. Jesse Pinkman's cooking meth. He's kind of a screw-up. And Walter White comes along with his scientific background, and he's smart, and he has his methods, and they become drug kingpins, right? And this is all done in science, right? We have a scientific method. You have research. You create a hypothesis. You test that hypothesis. you create, a conclusion. You either change and create another hypothesis, or you win that test and you go forward, right? And I think that this is a direct parallel. This is the biggest thing that I've learned working for these big companies, is that we have to design like scientists. We can't design like drug dealers. We have to design like scientists, okay? We're not slinging drugs on the streets. We're creating like rich experiences for big companies that are gonna make lots of money. And the reason I say this is because we have to define winning. How many people have like worked for a manager or a PM or a client, and you're constantly arguing or misaligning on like the objective of what you're trying to do, right? We've all done it. Defining winning and creating a hypothesis and designing around the hypothesis like levels the floor, because it strictly says this is what we're trying to do and achieve, and this is what we're going to test. And that should guide your entire product development. And so when you're a designer, a lonely old designer just trying to push pixels, this can be your thing. You can say, look, like, no, we are doing this well. I am doing my job. This design is achieving our hypothesis. And likewise, if you're betting and saying, this is how this design needs to be, and it doesn't perform, like that's the most humbling thing. When you're like, no, this is how it needs to be, at test, and no one knows how to use your design, but you think it's great, that's like an eye-opening experience. And I think we have to do that. We have to understand what winning means. We have to have a level of measurement for us to say we're being successful as designers and as creatives. And I think this is scary for us, because it's hard, right? You have to think really hard about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and it has to actually work. I don't think we can continue to just look at how many stars our apps are getting in the App Store, or that quick little feedback to judge whether we're doing well or not. I know that like app stores have a big issue because they'll have a bad version and a good version. The rating has to update. And I've been places where they're like, oh, well, we got an extra half a star. We're doing well, right? I don't know. I don't know if that means we're creating good experiences just because people are liking our app. So just a quick overview for those of you who haven't been in a testing environment. You have quantitative research and qualitative research. I'm not going to go into the deep depths of how you test a product, but I kind of want to share a couple quick examples of influential things that I've had in a testing experience. If any of you guys have watched Netflix on the iPad, you'll see this UI at the end of any episodic content. And if you've watched on other Netflix experience, you'll see this too. You finish an episode, and this little drawer comes up, or this modal pops up, and it says, do you want to watch the next episode? And it automatically rolls in if you don't do anything. And when we were working on this on the iPad, we knew this was a good feature. We know that this is convenient, it's utilitarian for an experience, it helps people watch content easily without picking up the remote, and we saw this successful on other platforms. And we very easily just could have built it and put it on the iPad. But there's a lot of nuances of how this product works that we wanted to understand better. And it wasn't so apparent to me. I was like, well, why are we even testing this? And so, for example, like you get to the credits. How soon into those credits does this pop up? How long does it stay? What are you actually saying here? What happens if I dismiss it? Does it expose itself again? Right? How long do you wait before it actually does roll people in? And all these little nuances can have drastic effects on how they perceive this feature. They could be losing control, right? And it's this A/B testing, this quantitative testing that we can do to truly understand the fine-tuning of a feature to get like the most, to make the most efficient, what I'm trying to say, to make our designs function at the highest efficiency we can, right? We could have shipped it and it could have worked, but we wanted to spend an extra couple months to test this to understand how to make it work best. And I think people understand this, understand A/B testing, but it doesn't have to be like, is it a red button or is it a blue button? You have drastically different experiences and really understand the best way to craft experiences for our users. And the best thing about this is it makes people a lot of money. Like when you're working with clients or when you're working with PMs, like this will make you win, and it will make you win hard. And I think we have to test because one, we want to make successful products, but two, because like we're all in this to make money. Like our businesses, the people we work for, our bosses need to be profitable. And this is a good way to do that. Then we have qualitative testing, which is my favorite, because you get to sip wine and eat peanuts and watch and laugh at people. That's very true. That's what we do. Qualitative testing I don't have UI here because I probably can't show it to you because it's stuff that's in development. It's stuff that we're thinking about. But this is what it looks like. It's a really dark picture. I can't even see it. But this is me and my past coworker, Josh, sitting in a room in New York, watching people try to figure out the stuff we built. And if you spend 2 days in a dark room watching people use your product, you'll learn more than you'll learn like a year at a whiteboard trying to figure stuff out. I know that a lot of people say that they can't do qualitative testing because there's not budget and we don't know who our users are. And I've talked to a lot of cool startups in San Francisco that literally will build a shoddy prototype and just go down to the coffee shop below their place and be like, hey, like what does this mean to you? Or like, what do you expect this button's gonna do, right? And you can get really quick feedback just talking to people and like sharing your stuff, letting people use it. I think we have this weird stigma too where everything's held really close to our chest and we'll have the next big idea and we're all got like, this little fairy in our pocket we can't share until it's ready. I don't know why fairy in our pocket is like a metaphor for secrets, but I think it's true. Like, what are you working on? People are like, oh, I can't tell you. Like, share your ideas, share your stuff, because I guarantee you're not the only person that's thought of it or the only company that's thought of it. Like, someone, it's basically who's going to execute on the best. Like, they're going to be the ones that win anyways. So, like, share your stuff because you're going to get valuable feedback. Even if it's other designers, you're going to share something like, I don't know, bro. Like, why are you doing it that way? You should think about it this way. You're going to learn a lot, and it's going to help you figure out your solution faster rather than trying to sit in a room and figure it out yourself. And that's why like successful companies that make a boatload of cash do this all day long. They spend a lot of money on qualitative testing because it helps you understand really what you need to build before you fully build it and you put all of the resources into doing it. So I encourage you guys, whatever scenario you're in, figure out a way to do testing and show prototypes, show, whatever you're building early and often to users and really understand how people use that product and what you're doing wrong because it will become very apparent very quick, like what is and what isn't working. And like when we would do a 2-day qual, we would show stuff, realize something's not working, and that night, like get Red Bull and bourbon and work till like 4 a.m. to fix it so the next day of testing we could get new results. And so those 2 days that we would just hustle, we would learn so much. And it is so much more productive than sitting in a room trying to figure it out with 2 engineers and a PM. So please test, guys. It'll change the way you think about product. And this is something that I kind of like to think, is that if your design is as you imagined it, it's probably wrong. Like none of us are that good to actually realize something and build it and have it be right. Even Steve Jobs, like the man is a genius and he changed our world and like we're forever in debt to him. But like you talk to anybody at Apple, it's about iteration, it's about changing, it's about discovering what the thing needs to be, not what you think it is. So please guys, I urge you, like I'm begging you to test because it will change the way you design. It's changed my life. I sound like an engineer when I'm in products. I'm like, what does design need to be? Like, well, we should probably test it first. I'm not sure, guys. Let's do some testing. I'm powering through these slides. I'll spend some time on this, but hopefully we can have some questions. I want to have a conversation with you guys. I want to talk through some of this stuff. So I finish a little early, we can chat some more. Design like a survivor. Based on your guys' feedback of what you watch, you probably watched this show too. So I'm going to ask, because you guys are probably all Walking Dead fans. I love zombies. I say this for last because I love this show. And Rick Grimes, he's in a dire situation. He's trying to fight for his family. There's crazy zombies everywhere. And he has to have the right tools. You need to be designing like a survivor in a zombie apocalypse. And he has tools, right? He's killing zombies, and so you have a machete, and you have baseball bats, and you have a sawed-off shotgun, and you have a sniper rifle. And anybody that's like looked into zombie culture knows that like you have to have all of these things set up the right way so that you can survive. So you have your sniper rifle for like your guys at the gates that are like long range, protection, and you have a sawed-off shotgun for like mid-range combat. You have a machete and a baseball bat for like dire situations when you're running through a crowd, right? You have to have the right tools to survive. And I really stretch this metaphor just because I like zombies, but we have to have the right tools as designers too, right? Thank you for sticking with me through that. It's pretty cool. I just wanted to like reference a machete and a shotgun in my talk. So I'm doing South by way too hard. I'm losing my voice. We have to have the right tools. We sketch, we have Photoshop, we have Illustrator, we have animation tools, prototyping tools. And this is something that like, I'm just kind of skimming the top of this. My good friend Ted Boda is sitting in the back. He's doing like a full 3-hour workship on this tomorrow. If you can catch it, it's designing UI in Keynote. It will change your life. He's changed my life. He's like my brother. We approach design with these tools. And I say design like a survivor because we are trying to survive. We all have deadlines. We never have enough time and resources. And so efficiency and like doing things the right way the first time, for me, is how I've actually tried to keep my head above water working for these big companies. Keynote doesn't pay me to say this, but like Keynote does all of these things for me. All that I use Photoshop and Illustrator for is final assets. It's the last step of my workflow. And if you go to see Ted's talk, he talks about this a lot. It's telling a story rather than just trying to create a design. So it's wireframing, it's visual UI, it's your specifications and your red lines, it's your UX flows, it's your prototype. Keynote actually does a lot of this. It has been a huge part of my workflow. Thanks to Ted. I'm giving like him the glory because this is like half his work. This is just a quick overview of like the different things that different software does. And as you see, like no one application does everything. And I think we all feel this tension. And Keynote's not perfect, but it does a pretty damn good job. It's actually where like Pixel Pretty Damn Perfect comes from. Me and Ted would talk a lot about Keynote, and this is what we try and focus on, right? Like we're taught to like push that pixel, no hinting, like perfection, right? And Keynote doesn't do this. It's not pixel perfect, but it's pixel pretty damn perfect, right? I say that because we start here a lot of times as designers and as artists, but we need to be thinking about this. We need to tell a story. We need to understand the user. Hopefully the testing and strategy and all these things that you guys are formulating in your process get you thinking about this. And this is the product you're designing. You are designing the pixels too, but that's not the whole story. So when you look at like a typical workflow, or if you just Google, app design UI workflow, you'll see a lot of articles that talk about this. You start sketching and you create these wireframes and you do all these things, and a lot of these tools people are using work well, and we've used them in the past. But when we're talking about efficiency and we're trying to survive, right? We're fighting the zombie PMs and deadlines. And I've found that like I was spending 20% like wireframing and thinking, and 80% like iterating and like digging through Photoshop comp layers and like trying to like sync big files, and 80% of my time like redoing designs in these heavy products. And I'm convinced the best way to do this is to spend 80% of your day in Keynote figuring out your story, figuring out the product, iterating, prototyping, pitching, speccing, and then delivering your assets the last 20%. And in the end, you'll spend, like, I guarantee you, 60% more efficiency. Like, you can do it in 2 months, I'll do it in 5 weeks. I guarantee you. Just because of the efficiency of this product. I'm not trying to like design challenge anybody, but I swear I would design circles around myself if I saw myself 2 years ago. Because and I don't think that Keynote's the only way to do this. I think what I'm trying to get across here, this is what works for me, and I encourage you guys to try it out. Meet me or Ted, go to his session, because a lot of companies do this. Like Netflix does this, Apple does this, Nest does this, Google does this. It's a quick way to design, and I think you guys can figure out what works for you. I think what I'm saying, and I've said this in the previous parts, is like you guys have to focus on the story, focus on the flow, focus on the user, test, figure out the product, and then design your UI on top of it. It's the last 20%. And I think it's flipped. I think we like to focus on the 20% rather than the 80%. So I don't want to get all heady about all of this and bore you guys, so I'll give you a quick little example. and it's a shameless plug. I have a very, very small, passionate podcast called The Balance. I can't, frankly, show anything else I work on, so I'll show this. It's a small site redesign I did. I just want to show you guys like how this works in Keynote. Because this is Keynote, I simply copy and pasted my designs over. So this is a nice web view of a post page, simple player. Well, shout out to Kyle Steed, local Texan, good friend. Tablet view. This isn't like Photoshop comps, this is just my design in Keynote. Exact same slides, I'm just dragging over. Own UI. So I can design all of these UIs all in one file, all with the same assets. I can then take that same file and I can spec it for my engineer. I don't have to export my stuff and bring it to another program. Everything's all right there. It's very easy and very quick to communicate all the specifics on your design. And then likewise, we had this like fun little player animation that I wanted to execute, and so I took the exact UI that I designed with and that I spec'd with, and I can animate it if it's gonna play. Oh shit, I knew that was gonna happen. I'm gonna go back to show you guys. So I wanted to create this cool hover animation. So like when the actual player was playing, you would be able to hover. It would kind of show you that you can just scrub this little player. You could click and drag it and scrub forward. And it was like a small thing, but I was talking to a developer and he was like, I don't quite get it. Like, can you give me a quick animation? And so I was literally 5 minutes on the way to work on the bus. I just mocked this up. And if I was to do that in another program, I'd have to go into Photoshop, export my mocks as separate elements or something, rebuild the UI in After Effects or another prototyping software, animate it, export it. And that's kind of the glory of what Keynote does for me, is it allows me to explore things, get the high-level idea of something to communicate to somebody so that they can produce it. And if I have to create some final assets or get detailed, I can do that in the other rich programs that I have. But this all lives in one file. It's all very rich. It's a small file I can hand off to anybody. And so it's been huge for me. So I encourage you guys once again to try Keynote. If you go to ilovekeynote.com, there's a ton of resources there that my buddy Ted has. It all has information about his talk. But think about your guys' product. Don't simply get into the details too soon. So that's my learnings and failures in a nutshell. To kind of summarize why I do this talk and why I want to share this, I think we as designers, a lot of us have an art background, and a lot of us care about what we're creating. But we want to create products for ourselves almost, I feel like sometimes. I know I did this. I wanted to create things that I thought were cool, that I wanted to interact with. And it's been a long 3 years for me to understand that like I'm not designing for myself. I'm designing for the weirdo with his like big screen in Starbucks on his PC. Like I'm designing for that guy. And I'm designing for my grandma. And I think that you have to understand that. And that's where testing and strategy and storytelling, all these things come into not just creating sexy UIs. And I think we do that a lot, and I think sexy UIs are great. But I encourage you guys to really think about your product, think about your value, and try and create something new. And if it's pixel pretty damn perfect, I think it's good enough. Thank you guys.